Today we're going to work on value scale, or making colors of a lighter value as opposed to, and how to mix those colors, how to mix those values. Before we do that, I'm zooming in on 3 different ways of wetting your paint. So we have a spray bottle. Spray bottle, you can spray the whole palette and get everything wet at one time. You can come over and you can put lots and lots and lots of water into a well, like that. So that's one way. If you have a little syringe that's left over from something, you can fill that with water. And drop that, because you just need 1 or 2 drops of water in your colors. You could drop that in there. It would also fill up a whole well of color. Or, I'm sorry, a whole well of water. You can also use it if you have too much water to then take away water. And that would be useful in just a second when you learn how to change the values in your paint. So another way, which is what we have been doing, is using your brush and filling it with water and then squeezing and getting drops of water slowly, one at a time. It's very hard to do when you're one-handed. Very slowly. So that's the slowest way, but it works, especially if you're out in the field nature journaling and you don't have the other options with you. But it's always good to have something so tiny like that to fit into your painting toolbox. Okay, so we are going to now talk about the colors in our palette. So we have 2 impatient flowers, 1 and 2. You see the value change in them. They, at one time, they are from the same plant, so they're the same color. But do you see the different value in them? Mm-hmm. Lacey? Mm-hmm. Do you see the different value? This one is a lighter value than this one.
But it also has some dark on. But
like
this
does
has
have,
even more.
We're talking about the overall color. Yeah. We're just focusing on the overall color. So this is a lighter value and this is a darker value. Okay. So lighter value, darker value. Now there are 2 ways of going about doing this. I could do, some people might call this a pastel color, but as an artist, you wouldn't call it a pastel. That is a tint. The proper word is tint, T-I-N-T, and it means that it is a hue or pigment, a color that has been mixed with white. So when you mix a color with white, it's called a tint. This would be a pure pigment color. So if we come over here to our paints, we see that we have lots of reds and pink colors in our palette. And if we look at how those colors come out on paper, we can compare. These are my color swatches from the colors in that palette, and I could put that next to Peach Puff and next to Scarlet, and I have a value scale, right? I have a lighter and a darker. Yeah. So I could do that. I could paint my impatiens using those pigments from the palette. So it would be this pink, and it would be, I believe actually it's that's Scarlet. I didn't do it in a smart order in my sketchbook to know which one, but that one's Scarlet and that one's Pink Puff. So I'd use those 2 to paint these 2 flowers, impatiens. But that's not the best way to do it. I also have a leaf, and you can see in the leaf, it's lots of different colors, and I chose this one on purpose to show you. This leaf, can you see, Lacey? Mm-hmm. Goes from dark to light. You're in the light, the window. Goes from dark to light. So again, it's a value scale. Now, how do you do that? If you look at the end of this lily, it's a daylily leaf. It's very pure green. And then the sage leaf, if I could get it to turn over, is more of a minty green. I wonder if you can see that better on the white paper. No, the light is just not in this room letting you see that it's more of a minty green. But it's more of a tint of green, a lighter green. You kind of see it now. It's not a yellower green. it's a lighter or a whiter green. That makes sense. And you also have these flowers. What color would you call those flowers?
Purple, violet.
You might call them purple or violet. They're actually more of a blue purple, right? There's more blue in this purple than there is red. So it wouldn't be so much violet, it would be closer to an indigo on that end of the purple scale.
It'd be that color.
But would we, so Lydia says it would be this color. Not really. That would be too dark because that,
You need to add
I
some
have that swatch there,
Yeah,
right?
you would have to add white.
So you think you would have to add white to
To
get
some parts.
that color of purple. You would need to add a white. Well, I have this ultramarine that looks really light, doesn't it, next to my purple? If I could mix those two together, I wonder if I would get that color. But I don't really need to even do that. I can do something even more simple than that. So I'm going to go back to this well of color here that I have. I have well of water. I keep saying well of color. I'm sorry. Well of water here that I have. And I have purple right next to it. Okay. I have two purples. I have a bluer purple and a redder purple. I'm going to go with the bluer purple. And what I'm going to do is I need to wet this. It did not end up getting wet. So I'm going to wet this paint. I've got some pigment. And I'm going to drop this into here. Now, what color is that paint?
It's a very light color.
Exactly. It's a very watered down. And that you are going to get if I come back to my palette, my swatches of color, and I do it next to it. You still see that color, right? But it's a lighter value. So it's pigment that has been very watered down. So this is how you get a value scale in watercolor. So I'm going to give Lydia the camera in hopes that it'd be super, super still while I do a value scale in watercolor. So we're going to start with, can you see, Lydia, all my colors? We're going to keep the same amount of water and the pigment here. And this is going to be our lightest one. And I'm going to make just kind of a little square. I'm going to go back, grab some pigment, swirl it around. See how it's getting darker? I'm going to put that whoops, got some dust in there. Put that next to it. You want to be very careful. You see what just happened? My wet paints blended together. That's not a good thing in this case. So try with your value scale to leave a little bit of space so you can tell the darkness. Now, it wasn't much of a change, but as we go, you will see more of a change happen. So let's leave a space, just a thin space, so that those two paints don't touch. You can see it's getting a little bit darker. And it's not changing fast enough for me. So what I'm going to do is this handy tool that I told you would be really handy later, and I will show you how. I'm going to take some of this away because a lot of it's just water, and I really want it to get darker. I want the pigment to get darker. It doesn't seem to be working today.
You're good.
That was a really big jump. See if I can grab some from over here. I think it's this one. Nope, that's that one. So I grabbed some more pigment, put that in there. Do it again. And you just keep going. You can see that it's getting darker until you're ready to just use the straight pigment. I'm going to set it next to it. So it would be, so it goes like an L shape here. Until you're ready to just use the straight pigment. So you can see the range of value I was able to obtain by using the purple that I have and then using water in order to lighten my color. I did not use white. That's a natural tendency, is to mix white. I did not use white. I used water. That is the nature of watercolor. The more water you add, the lighter the value of the paint. Okay? The less water and the more pigment you add, the darker the value of paint. So, you have to be still, please. You can see that now, Lacey, can you see this? That now I can find the right value of this color out of this value scale, right? I can find this purple. Not only that, but girls, I can look multiple values, because how many values are in these sage flowers?
A lot.
There's a lot of purples in there. So
Like
to make
5.
it more realistic, I'm sorry, there's not a lot of purples. There are a lot of values of that one purple. So you want that one color and you want lots of value of that one color. Lots of value. Lots of value makes things look more realistic, and that is how you achieve a value scale. So I would suggest this week that you concentrate on your colors. You can use things from nature to match up. Thank you. To practice getting the different values, going from light to dark. Now in this one, it's a little bit different because you see a yellow undertone in there, but the yellow really is concentrated over here. So really this would be a reverse value scale. You would do this. So I would use the green. You see it's darker. And I'm going to use more and more water to pull that out to a lighter color. It's really difficult with the water. You see that? And then I would go back and I would do the same thing with the yellow, the pigment, and then pull it out towards the green. So I'm adding more and more water until it matches up. Okay? So that is a reverse value scale on both ends. Darker green to lighter green, darker yellow to lighter yellow, and they marry in the middle. And that's what that leaf does right there. So that's how you do it. So I suggest you do some of these things, trying to marry the two colors, but do it in this way that I did it the first time. And try to marry the two colors together, and then use different hues or pigments, different pigments in your palette to then make different value scales. But make sure this value scale is all just one color, but lots of different values. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I would say 8 values from one color. And there's multiple values in here from 2 colors.